Welcome to All Star Quilts. I'm Eleanor Burns. I have a bright quilt and a zany quilt to show you today. Well, this quilt is called Tequila Sunrise, made by Lois Bresloff. Now, to make a bold statement, Lois chose color wheel opposites with stunning results. She combined royal purple and bright orange. Wow. Well, her feathered start appears to blaze from the dark contrast of surrounding violet. The color palette is carried out to the border for dazzling results. You know, she quilted it herself. It's beautiful. And then the tea leaf on the back is very graphic. Really pretty. Bright. That's Lois. Well, the next quilt is called Twilight Zone, made by Brenda Witt. This stunning quilt pulls you in. Now, Brenda's choice of this hypnotic fabric adds life to the contemporary quilt. And then her clever use of bold reds with blacks and grays on a pure white background gives it depth. It's just stunning. Well, her feathered star is smashing in galaxy, black, white, and red all around. You know, Brenda is a machine quilter at heart. She did her own machine quilting on the white background with crescent leaves and leaf patterns. This is just great. Well, let's get started. Today is the last day we finish our quilt. This is the day that we've been working for. It is the big day. Well, we moved the quilt over to this wall so that we could set up the design wall and lay out the whole top. So you'll get to see it piece by piece as it goes together. Now, the feathered star is just laying so flat and beautiful. Everything matched, pressed beautifully with the 1.5-inch framing border. It would be really good right now if you would measure it. Measure side to side. Find out if you're about the same size that I am. Mine is 29.5 inches. It'll be 29 inches finished. So the 4 triangles are done and in place. That's the 1 Mary Ann star, the 2 Alex stars, and then a 2.5-inch border around 2 corners, and then it's just cut on the diagonal. So we're going to add first this one, and you do the opposite one, and then press those out, and then you'll do 3 and 4. So I have to take this off. It's going to break my heart, but we've got to do it. And I just want to fold it in half because we need some match points so that everything goes equally. Okay, I'm just going to take this one. This is exciting. It's like you're going to find out how good you are now. So just take your top and fold it in half. Just line up these corners right here. You can take it to the iron or just do a press with your fingers. I like to just use my fingernails. Okay, open it up. You've got the center of the quilt. Now, you've got a seam right here that indicates the center of the triangles. So just place that right sides together, get that all lined up, and then pin from the center out. And you can just put some pins in from this edge out. Now, don't stretch it, lay it down carefully so that you actually have, this is exactly right, it's about a 1/2 inch hanging out on the end. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you have the same amount of tip on every single triangle. And then it's going to end up to be great and square in the end. Okay, let's take this one. No stretching, check and see. Actually, I think that's a little bit more. You want to kind of ease it in if you need to. I'll put those together side by side so we'll see how it works. Okay, I'm pinning this side so that you can see all the seams in the blocks and you can just stitch across them just as they are. Okay, let's just do a little measuring. We'll just lay it out. See how good my eye is. Okay, all right, it's perfect. It's just perfect. It's equal. Remember that measurement because that's what you want. Okay, so now just use that same 1/4" seam you've been using all along, and just keep everything laying flat. You know, we talked about, Teresa and I talked about it. She makes a lot of these quilts, and we estimate, oh, maybe you need a good afternoon. You need probably 3 to 4 hours, a large table surface, a surface that you can go ahead and be laying everything out. Make sure that you are always setting seams and pressing as you go. You don't want to mess it up right now, but allow yourself a good afternoon to put your whole top together, a large area, and oh my gosh, get a good night's rest, because by the end of the day, your shoulders are going to be really killing you, just turning everything away. And remember each time to use your rulers, cut it accurately, press as you go. Okay, I'm nearly done. Gone the whole way across at least one triangle, and you can multiply that by 4. Pull out your pins as you go. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and press it. Cut your threads. And I like steam. You know that, I like steam. I'm just a big steam person. So just take and set the seam with the triangle on the top. Set it all along there. And do be careful, you just kind of do this up and down motion so that you don't stretch the pieces, and then flip it over, because we're going to press the seam toward the framing border. Okay, so this just lift it up, and you always put whatever piece you want the seam to go toward on the top. All right, so now I think I've got it directed, and just get right in here and press right along there. Now, you can see that tip is hanging out on the end. You're just going to cut that straight across. And remember, that's the size tip that you want on all 4 triangles. Let me finish this. The 4 triangles are on, and the seams are all pressed toward the framing border. I wanted to show you how that seam looks right here, where the triangles join together. It's actually a floating seam. It's a little bit more than 1/4 inch is a floating seam, so about 1/2 inch, so that the next time you add your seam on here, you're not so close, and then just go ahead and cut off those tips when you sew that seam, because there's nothing worse than cutting off your tips. So now you're going to add another 1.5 inch framing border, measure both of the sides, take the average measurement, and you can cut these pieces exactly the same, or like allow 1/2 inch extra just in case. So the sides go on, and then pressed out toward the framing border, and then top and bottom. Well, the next border is a background border. You need to have 5 of them. So that piece should finish around 43 inches. 43 inches, give 1/2 inch or take 1/2 inch. 43 inches is really close to the whole length of a strip. And if you would just go ahead and sew this strip right on, chances are good you're going to have seams right near the edges, and it always looks like you made a mistake. You don't want to have that. So what I recommend is go ahead and trim off the salvages. There's 5 of them here. They're 4 1/4 inches. Trim off all of the salvages, and then, that was really thick, my goodness. There were 3 of them there. And then take one of them and cut it in half. Let's just go ahead, cut it on the fold, and we're going to start out with a half strip, so that our seams don't always keep on coming up near the outside edge. We'll just trick everybody. Okay, I like to assembly line sew all of these pieces together. Just put the half at the top, and then you'll put the other half at the end. So just take and keep your strips all stacked up like this. Pick up the first one and go ahead and assembly line sew the half strip on. And then you go ahead, let me pick up my speed a little bit. I'm going too slow there. Okay, now take this strip that I sewed on the top and take the opposite end and turn it right side up. And then go to the next long strip and put it right sides together. If you can learn how to loop these borders together, then you'll be able to do it very quickly. Okay, that's one, and then just take this one, turn it right side up. See the little loop that I'm creating here? Put this one right sides together to it, and just keep on going until you have them all sewn together. I like to press my seams open on these borders. Press the seams open, and then you have one really long piece to cut into 4 smaller pieces. So let me get the next border on. We are rolling right along. The 4 1/4 inch background is sewn on and pressed toward the background. Now these are the star borders. Each border is made with 6 of Nancy Starr's 24 stars. And then we trimmed them up to 9 inches wide. Well, now it's the length we're concerned about. Measure the length of the background. Now this background border is 91 inches long. Ideally, the star border is also 91 inches long. Measure them and make sure that they are the same length. Well, if there's a 1/2 inch difference one way or the other, you can stretch the two or you can just ease them to fit. But there are some remedies if there's more than a 1/2 inch difference. If your background borders are too long, you can always sliver trim a bit off the background. Well, if you use skimpy seams in the star border and it's longer than the background, consider taking in some star seams or adding a narrow border to the background and bring it up to the length of the stars. Or you can simply remove the background and sew on borders wider than 4 1/4 inches. Check it out. I have seen students do such amazing things. Now, once again, when you're ready to sew this on, match up the centers of the 2 borders, pin them together, sew the length of the borders, and then press your seams toward the background border. Well, when you add the top and the bottom star borders, remember to match and pin the corners on marked star. You are 1 hour from doing the happy dance. I finished my top and I'm on my way to drop it off at Amy Potter's, the Longarm Quilter. Well, I have picked off all the threads and the backing is at least 4 inches wider on all 4 sides. This is just a beautiful large-scale print. I selected 80/20 batting because the wrinkles easily fall out. I decided that this is one of my best quilts and I wanted a professional to quilt it. I never have time to perfect my quilting, but I am so lucky I have Longarm Quilters on call. Do you believe that? I'll have it back shortly to show you how to put on the binding. Ooh, I can't wait. That's going to be a lot of fun. I have 2 examples of Longarm quilting to show you. I had Judy Jackson quilt this one for me. Now, Judy is very gifted, but I asked her to do something simple so other piecers could copy it. Judy uses paper pantograph designs, but if you want to quilt your own, you may be able to find some stencils. Judy did a pinwheel right in the center, and you can find a stencil that is a pinwheel. Do it yourself. And then there's a second design right here in the corners. Now there's spirals to fill in the squares, and to fill in the background, there's large stipples. And do you believe that you can even get a stencil for stippling. This is too much. Well, I love the ribbon candy border. This is one of my favorites. And if you want, you can go ahead and use this little wave right here in the triangles. It's just perfect. Well, this beautiful quilt is to hang in my log home. I can't wait to get it there. Now, Mary Jo Rembold is a gifted artist at her Longarm. She did much of this intricate stitches freehand, claiming to stitch whatever pops into her head. Now that would never pop into my head. She started out here with this beautiful feather right in the very center, and then she moved out to more feathers in the triangles and right here. This is called curved cross hatching, and she did mark it with a ruler. It's absolutely beautiful. Well, she used 2 layers of batting to show off the elegant details. She used wool batting on top of 80/20, not only to show off details, but the quilt also has a memory, so wrinkles just hang out quickly. So however you decide to quilt, may it be beautiful. Amy finished my quilt, and I've been standing and admiring her work. She does everything freehand. It's wonderful. I was looking at the little points, how it actually accentuates that movement away from the star. She did 1/4 inch away stitching around the triangles, and look at the circular feather right in the squares. Beautiful work, and this is so cute. She did a little heart with feathers in the triangles, little stitch in the ditch along the strip, and just out. Everything is just so beautiful. And look at the swirling. Oh my gosh. I couldn't ever get this done. If I would practice the rest of my life, I could never do this. It pays to pay a professional, I promise. Well, I am putting the binding on. I'm getting ready to just roll this up. I want to show you some tips on binding. So it's pretty awkward right now. I always say you have to have a strong back. Now, hopefully this is going to help me. Now, this is the best part. I have just a traditional walking foot. This is what just an ordinary walking foot looks like. And the idea is when your stitch goes up and down, it kind of walks across your stitches. Well, I have a new walking foot for my machine. It is amazing. I'm really excited about it. It's nice and wide, and the advantage is that it clearly fits on top of the feed dogs. So it just kind of ships right through for you. It's terrific. I love it. Okay, so I've already taken my binding. These are 2 3/4 inch strips, and you have to piece enough together to go the whole way around the quilt. And I actually like to press the seam open when I do my binding. What is unique about this all-star quilt is that you only have room to do a 1/4 inch seam around your binding because this border ends right here. So you don't want to cut off your tips. There'd be nothing worse than cutting off your tips. So I set my machine so that I could go ahead and use the edge of my binding foot. Let's see if I can get this lined up, that when I put it down, I put my foot down, I moved my needle so that from this edge to where I place my needle, it is 1/4 inch. I set my stitch length at 3.0 because you don't want to have this tight stitch. You want to have this nice long stitch that it's going to go right through. And so now you've got to just keep on moving this along with you. You might want to use your gloves. I just didn't feel it was necessary. It just felt kind of hot today. So let's just slide this along. Now, you want to be careful that you don't drop your seams on your binding right on the corner, and I'm very lucky because my seam is just going to end and then I can start. I'm coming into my corner, and you have to do this cool turn. So I take a pin, a long pin, I judge what my seam allowance is, and I put that pin right in there. It should be that 1/4 inch. Okay, let me shift this. And let's just get going again. Now on my machine, when I stop stitching, the needle always goes down in the fabric, so that really helps. Okay, I'm coming into the pin. This is going to help. So go right to the pin and stop. Needle down. Now turn your corner. Whoa, I lost my whole quilt off of the table. See what I mean? You have to have good shoulders and keep all this on your table. Okay, so now I'm just going to turn to go on a diagonal. I want to make sure I keep everything out of the way so you can see this. Okay, I'm going to stitch from that pin right off on the diagonal. And then you can go ahead and just cut your threads if you want, because we're gonna turn this. Okay, so let's just take a look. There, I got to the pin and then I sewed off. So now take out your pin and you just open it up and you fold up. You fold up, and I actually went a couple of stitches too long, so I'm just gonna snip those stitches out. Perfect. You fold it straight up at the diagonal, and then you take and you fold. You might want to use your stiletto. This is a perfect time for a stiletto. I'm going to show you how to make a really nice corner. And then you just take and you fold this right back down. Perfect. And now I have this fold just even with my binding on the outside edge. So now we have to turn this to the next side. This quilt is heavy. It's not that big, but it is heavy. So now I've got that fold in there, and I'm just going to start again, put my foot down, keep on doing my 1/4 inch, and just sew right along there. I'm not pulling with it. I'm just laying that binding down nicely, and I'm using my binding buddy today, and it is my buddy. I sat down and I had this big long strip wrapping all over the floor, and I said, okay, this is it. I'm getting out my buddy, because then you just keep on pulling it right out and it works great. Okay, so now I'm doing really good, but I want to show you how to trim it up. So I'm just going to cut my threads right here, raise my foot, and do some trimming. So if I let it just kind of hang over the table like that. Okay, so be careful. You do not cut your corner. Oh my gosh, that would be the worst. But I'm going to cut so that my fabric is filled, so that my binding is going to be filled. I trimmed that, just a little bit more than 1/4 inch. And let me just take and turn this around this way, like this, and trim one more, and I'll show you how that corner looks. Take this and cut this off right here. Okay, so now the miracle corner. When you open that up and you just pop that out, it's just beautiful, like so. Now I actually like to stitch my binding down by machine, and so you have to take the binding and you fold it to the back side. And now comes the wonder clips. Pretty handy. So now I just like to have wonder clips, and you just clip them, and when you clip them in place like this, it actually starts to actually press this whole thing down. Take this and do a little miter fold, and then fold that over. So that's what it looks like there, and just put in your clips the whole way around. Also, if you like to do your binding by hand, I'd like to just take these wonder clips and stick them all in there. Okay, so all I have to do is get this corner. Let me clip this down one little bit. Okay, and then once I have that all folded from the front side, then all I need to do to finish this off is just put my stitches right in along here. Stitch the whole quilt down, and it will be just beautiful. So now it's your turn to be a star. Enjoy making your own all-star quilt.